Edgar Pangborn was an American science fiction writer, born in New York in 1909 as the son of Harry LIII Pangborn, attorney and dictionary editor, and of Georgia Wood Pangborn, writer of short stories for such magazines as Scribner's and Harper's Monthly. Initially homeschooled, he eventually studied music at Harvard before he became a professional writer. He was also employed as a farmer and served in the medical corps during World War II. His first book was published in 1930, and he wrote science fiction, mystery, and historical books. Among them, his Darkening World series, of which Davy was the first. A close friend to fantasy writer Peter S. Beagle, Pangborn died at Bearsville, New York in 1976, aged 67. Davy was compiled from two novellas, being The Golden Whore and A War of No Consequence. It is a story of post-apocalyptic medievalism, a personal favourite genre of mine which doesn't get as much attention as it should. Even the most well-known example of the form, A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr., only sticks to the form for 2/3 of the novel. Davy is a story of a youth growing up in a post-apocalyptic Luddite America divided into several isolationist warring nations. The protagonist, Davy, is a foundling who is forced into indentured servitude and apprenticeship and is little less than a slave. Though he is not allowed to do so, he takes to wandering around outside the city walls in the forest, and during one of his revels he discovers a strange deformed mutant in possession of an ancient musical instrument, a golden horn. The simple-minded, grotesquely obese mutant living in the trees blindly trusts Davy, and Davy decides to steal the pipes from him via a trick and go back to use them to impress his love interest. However, he is caught trying to break past the city barricades and ends up on the run. Witnessing his city's soldiers in a fight with a squadron of invading soldiers, he goes into hiding. While in hiding, he meets up with some refugees from the other side of the war, and they travel together, a bond forming between Davy and one of the runaways who may have a closer personal connection to him than he thinks. Finally, Davy winds up as part of a traveling group of performers, eventually ending up as an advisor of a mighty prince attempting reform, but ends up being thwarted by the workings of the church, leading to the whole lot of Davy and his friends having to emigrate on board of a great ship towards a hopeful new world in Europe. Arriving on an island, they establish an ideal colony, but Davy is restless and goes on to try and find life in mainland Europe proper. The one negative part of the book is that the story is given to us as a chronicle written by the title character after the fact, and the Great Revolution ends up undoing the reform work of Davy and his illustrious patron is only ever hinted at and never properly elaborated on. The story very slowly narrated the progression of Davy along the American coastline and all the people he meets and all the things that happen to him and his personal growth, but just as it is about to reach the city and start to narrate the most meatiest part of the story, it just sort of stops. Pangborn did write other novels and stories taking place in the same setting, but all take place at different times and none really fill in the blanks that Davy left, which is a shame since overall it was a pretty enjoyable book.